Welcome to Copilot Podcasts. Here's a number that should stop you cold. 56% of AI experts believe artificial intelligence will have a positive impact on the United States over the next 20 years. Sounds reasonable, right? Now, here's the gut punch. Only 17% of the general public agrees. That's not a small gap. That's a chasm. And the people on either side of it are living in completely different realities. Today, we're going inside the minds of the innovators who are actually building this era. Who they are, what they're genuinely worried about, and what the sharpest voices in the room are saying that most people never get to hear. By the end of this episode, you'll understand the real fault lines in AI development, why trust has become the defining battleground, and what it actually takes to build something that lasts in this moment. I've got someone here who has been deep in these conversations, and I want to start with something that I think catches a lot of people off guard. Just how fast the landscape has shifted. So set the scene for us. Where are we actually at right now?
So the thing that's easy to miss is that generative AI has already moved well past the text and image phase that most people associate with it. According to research published on Discovering AI in early 2026, we're now seeing sophisticated models capable of creating complex simulations, writing code, and even designing physical products. And companies aren't just experimenting anymore, they're integrating these tools directly into their core workflows.
So it's not a pilot program situation anymore.
Not even close.
And the adoption numbers back that up. Gartner projected that 75% of enterprises will be using some form of AI by 2027. And on the business impact side, Microsoft's Cloud blog reported in 2025 that more than 85% of the Fortune 500 are already using Microsoft AI solutions. IDC predicted that investments in AI solutions and services are projected to yield a global cumulative impact of $22.3 trillion by 2030.
22.3 trillion.
That's a number that's hard to even hold in your head.
Right, and IDC also found that every new dollar spent on AI solutions is expected to generate an additional $4.9 in the global economy. So the multiplier effect is real.
But here's where it gets interesting, and this is where the innovator interviews become so valuable. The people building this stuff are not all singing from the same hymn sheet. What do you mean by that?
Well, take that Pew Research Center report from April 2025. They surveyed both the general public and actual AI experts. And yes, experts are far more optimistic. 47% of experts say they're more excited than concerned about AI in daily life. But that drops to just 11% among the public. Meanwhile, 51% of the general public say they're more concerned than excited.
So the people closest to the technology are the most enthusiastic, and the people furthest from it are the most worried. That's kind of the classic pattern, isn't it?
It is, but I'd push back slightly on framing it as just a knowledge gap, because when you actually listen to the innovators, the people doing the building, a lot of them are worried too, just about different things. And that's what makes this era so fascinating to dig into.
Okay, so before we get into what they're worried about, I want to give people a bit of historical grounding here, because this conversation about AI and its risks isn't new, right? Like, people have been theorizing about this for a long time.
Yeah, and this is one of those things that genuinely surprises people. The concept of an intelligence explosion, the idea that AI systems could become capable of recursively improving their own capabilities, was actually introduced by a mathematician named I.J. Good back in 1966. This is decades before the internet, before personal computers were mainstream. And yet the theoretical framework he laid out is essentially what researchers are stress testing right now.
1966. That's wild. So the blueprint for the conversation we're having today was written before most of our parents were born.
Exactly. And what's remarkable is how mainstream these conversations have become. In November 2025, FT Live brought together 6 of the most influential minds in AI, Jensen Huang, Jeffrey Hinton, Yan LeCun, for an exclusive conversation on how their breakthroughs are shaping the world. That video has racked up over 333,000 views. These aren't niche academic discussions anymore.
And then at Google I/O in May 2026, they had this whole dialogue stage. Sundar Pichai, Demis Hassabis from DeepMind, people from Boston Dynamics, all sitting down to unpack where this is all going. It's become almost like a cultural event.
It really has. And what I find compelling about those conversations is that they're not just about capability, they're about direction. Like at Google I/O, Demis Hassabis specifically highlighted AI's role in solving complex scientific problems. That's a very different framing than AI will automate your job.
Right. It's AI as a tool for discovery rather than just efficiency. Okay, so let's get into the actual innovators, because I think this is where it gets really concrete. Who are the voices that are cutting through the noise right now?
So one person I keep coming back to is Aaron Fulkerson, the CEO of a company called OPAC. He was interviewed by Unite.ai in June 2026, and his framing of the AI problem is genuinely different from most. OPAC came out of UC Berkeley's RISE lab, the same research ecosystem that produced Apache Spark and Databricks, and they're focused on what they call confidential AI.
Confidential AI, what does that actually mean?
So the core problem they're solving is this. Enterprises want to use AI on their most sensitive data, patient records, financial data, proprietary research, but they can't do that without exposing that data. OPAC uses confidential computing and encrypted runtime environments so that sensitive information stays protected before, during, and after AI processing. Their customers include ServiceNow, Anthropic, and Accenture.
So they're essentially making it safe to actually use AI in the places where it matters most.
Exactly. And Fulkerson's philosophy behind it is what I find really compelling. He said in the interview, and this is a direct quote, "The most powerful technology only wins when people trust it." That's the lesson he took from 2 decades of building enterprise platforms, and it reframes the entire AI conversation from what can it do to who can it be trusted by.
That's a really different entry point than most AI companies take. Most of them lead with capability. He's leading with trust.
And that's not just a philosophical stance, it's a business thesis. Because the industries that most need AI, healthcare, finance, insurance, are also the ones with the most sensitive data and the most regulatory scrutiny. If you can't solve the trust problem, you can't unlock those markets.
Okay, so that's one voice. What about on the ethics and access side? Because I know there are innovators who are thinking about who AI benefits, not just how it works.
Yeah, and this is where the Innovation Hub Live interviews from early 2026 are really interesting. They spoke with Sarah Chen, CEO of BioNexus, a company working on AI-powered diagnostics for personalized medicine. And her quote was striking. She said, "We must ensure that AI benefits all of humanity, not just a select few." That's not a technical statement, that's a value statement.
And it's a value statement that a lot of people in the general public would probably agree with, even if they're skeptical of AI overall.
Right. And that's the interesting thing about the Pew data. Even though the public and experts are far apart on optimism, they actually converge on wanting more personal control over AI and worrying that government regulation will fall short. So there's common ground, it's just buried under the headline numbers.
That's actually kind of reassuring. Like, the disagreement is about outcomes, not about whether guardrails matter.
Exactly. And that brings me to what I think is the most underreported story in AI right now, which is what the researchers who are actually building frontier systems are saying behind closed doors. Or, well, in academic papers.
Okay, now I'm genuinely curious. What are they saying?
So there was a study published on RxScive from the ML Alignment and Theory Scholars Program, where researchers interviewed 25 leading AI researchers from places like Google DeepMind, OpenAI, Anthropic, Meta, UC Berkeley, Princeton, and Stanford. And the findings are striking. 20 out of those 25 researchers identified automating AI research itself as one of the most severe and urgent AI risks.
Wait, so the people building AI are most worried about AI building AI?
That's essentially it. The concern is this feedback loop. If AI systems become capable of improving their own capabilities, you get what researchers call recursive improvement. And the study found that researchers expect AI agents to gradually transition from being assistants or tools to becoming, quote, autonomous AI developers. After that point, predictions diverge wildly.
Diverge how? Well, there's a real split between frontier lab researchers and academic researchers. The academics are more skeptical about explosive growth scenarios. The lab researchers, the ones closest to the most powerful systems, are more concerned about rapid, hard-to-control acceleration. And here's the detail that really stuck with me. 17 out of 25 participants expected AI systems with advanced coding or R&D capabilities to be increasingly reserved for internal use at AI companies or governments, unseen by the public. So the most powerful AI tools might not be publicly available. They'd be concentrated in the hands of a few organizations.
And that's exactly the concern the researchers flagged most frequently. Power concentration. AI-augmented progress accelerating behind closed doors. Almost all of them favored transparency-based mitigations, but they were split on whether setting regulatory red lines was even a good idea.
That's a really uncomfortable place to land. Like, the people who know the most are the least certain about what to do about it.
Which is actually a sign of intellectual honesty, not incompetence. The worst thing would be if they were all confidently pointing in the same direction. Disagreement among experts on hard problems is usually a sign that the problem is genuinely hard.
Fair point. Okay, so let's zoom out a bit, because we've been talking about the risks and the trust issues, but there are also innovators who are just building things that work, like real-world applications with real numbers attached.
Yeah, and this is where the case study data gets really interesting. McKinsey's 2025 State of AI report found that companies focused on value creation, scalability, and differentiation are 2.5 times more likely to see significant returns from their AI investments. The ones that just chase buzzwords, they're in an 80% failure rate category.
80% failure rate. That's brutal.
It is, but the successes are genuinely impressive. Take Walmart. They implemented an AI system that analyzes weather patterns, local events, social media trends, and over 200 other variables in real time. The result was a 30% reduction in out-of-stock situations and $2.3 billion in inventory cost savings in the first year alone. And the key insight from that case study is that they didn't try to reinvent retail, they just made their existing process dramatically better.
That's such a good framing. It's not about the most dramatic transformation, it's about the most effective one.
And that connects to something Box CEO Aaron Levy said in the Deloitte AI from the Frontline series. He said, and this is a direct quote, "A lot of organizations don't have an AI problem, they have a data problem." Which is kind of a gut check moment for any company that's rushing to deploy AI without first asking whether their data is actually AI ready.
That's a really grounding thing to say in the middle of all the hype. Like, slow down, get your foundation right.
Exactly. And it echoes what the Deloitte series found more broadly, that real AI impact depends on thoughtful strategy, training, and integration, not just chasing trends. Faisal Masood from HP put it well in that same series, talking about how hype consistently outpaces reality, and how the gap between promise and productivity is where most companies get stuck.
So there's this recurring theme across all these innovator interviews, whether it's Fulkerson on trust or Levy on data or the researchers on governance, that the hard work isn't the technology itself, it's everything around the technology.
That's a really sharp observation. And I think it's the thing that gets lost in the breathless coverage of AI capabilities. The MDPI paper on AI's impact on modern society, published in August 2025, made exactly this point. It found that AI has this dual nature. It's both a catalyst for innovation and a source of potential disruption. And the paper specifically called for proactive governance and ethical frameworks to mitigate risks while maximizing benefits.
And that's not a new call, right? People have been saying we need governance for years. What's different now?
What's different is the urgency, because the technology is no longer theoretical. It's deployed. It's in hospitals, in financial systems, in manufacturing lines. And the innovators who are most credible right now are the ones who are building governance into the product itself, not treating it as an afterthought. That's what OPAC is doing with confidential AI. That's what the researchers in that RACSIV study are pushing for with transparency-based mitigations.
There's also this global dimension that I don't want to skip over, because it's not just a US story.
Not at all. Joe Weinman, who's known as the father of cloudomics, gave a really interesting interview to the Global Times in May 2026, and his framing of where AI is heading globally is worth sitting with. He said that AI is becoming pervasive across almost every industry and aspect of daily life, and increasingly integrated into everyday products and services. And then he made this comparison that I think is really clarifying. He said, people no longer consciously think about electricity when they use modern devices, and AI is heading the same way.
AI as infrastructure. Not a feature, not a product, just the invisible layer everything runs on.
Right. And Weinman also pointed out that what we see today, large language models, AI agents, massive data centers, is just a snapshot in time. Many of today's technical bottlenecks will eventually be solved, making AI even more widespread and accessible, which is either exciting or terrifying, depending on where you sit.
Or both at the same time, which seems to be the honest answer.
Both at the same time is probably the most accurate place to land. And I think that's actually what the best innovators are sitting with. They're not dismissing the risks to seem optimistic, and they're not catastrophizing to seem serious. They're holding both.
I want to come back to something you said earlier about the perception gap, the 56% versus 17% split between experts and the public on AI's positive impact. Because I think that gap is actually the most important thing to understand right now. Not as a problem to fix, but as a signal.
Say more about that.
Well, if the people building AI are significantly more optimistic than the people living with it, that's not just a communication problem. That's a design problem. It means the technology isn't reaching people in ways that feel beneficial to them. And the innovators who are going to matter most in the next decade are probably the ones who close that gap, not by convincing people to trust AI more, but by building AI that actually earns that trust.
That's exactly right. And the Pew data supports it. Both groups, experts and the public, agree that they want more personal control over AI. That's the common ground. And the innovators who build toward that, who give people agency rather than just capability, are the ones who are going to define this era.
And that's also where the AI ethics conversation gets really practical. Because it's not just about preventing harm, it's about building something people actually want to use.
Completely. And the innovators who get that, like Sarah Chen at BioNexus framing AI as something that must benefit all of humanity, or Fulkerson at OPAC building trust into the architecture itself, they're not just being idealistic. They're being strategic because the market for AI that people trust is enormous. The market for AI that people fear is a lot smaller.
Okay, so let's also talk about what's happening at the individual level, because we've been talking a lot about enterprises and researchers, but there are also people who are just figuring out how to use this in their own work.
Yeah, and the All About AI interview series is a really good window into that. They've been doing these profiles of practitioners, people like Renuka, who developed what she calls simple rules for real-world AI adoption, or Shad Salam, who's been helping small and medium businesses use AI as a competitive edge. These aren't billion-dollar companies. These are people figuring it out in real time.
And what's the common thread in those stories?
Starting small. That's the consistent message. Shad Salam's whole thesis is that SMBs win when they start small, practical automation strategies that save time and boost ROI without trying to boil the ocean. And that actually maps onto the McKinsey finding about the 80% failure rate. The companies that fail are usually the ones that try to do too much too fast.
So the revolution isn't always loud. Sometimes it's just someone figuring out how to stop losing leads or how to make their inventory system smarter.
Exactly. And I think that's actually the more durable version of the AI revolution. The headline-grabbing stuff gets the attention, but the compounding effect of thousands of small, well-executed AI implementations is probably where most of the real value gets created.
That's a really different picture than the one you get from most AI coverage, which tends to focus on the biggest, most dramatic applications.
And that's part of why the innovator interview format is so valuable. Because when you actually sit down with the people doing the work, not just the keynote speakers, but the practitioners, you get a much more textured picture of what's actually happening.
All right, so when you step back from all of this, the perception gaps, the trust debates, the researchers who are simultaneously building and worrying, the practitioners who are just trying to make it work, what does it actually add up to?
Here's what I think it adds up to. The AI era isn't being shaped by a single vision or a single voice. It's being shaped by a genuinely diverse set of people who are pulling in different directions, and that tension is actually healthy. The researchers who are sounding alarms about power concentration are doing important work. The entrepreneurs who are building trust into their products are doing important work. The practitioners who are figuring out how to make AI useful for a small business are doing important work. The revolution is plural.
The revolution is plural. I like that. And I think the Pew data kind of underscores that, because even within the expert community, there are real disagreements. Men are more optimistic than women. Frontier lab researchers are more concerned about rapid acceleration than academics. There's no monolithic expert view.
Right. And that's actually reassuring in a weird way. Because a field where everyone agrees is a field that's stopped asking hard questions. The fact that the people building the most powerful AI systems are also the ones most worried about automating AI research, that's not a contradiction. That's intellectual honesty.
And the actionable insight for anyone listening is, don't wait for the consensus that's never coming. The people shaping this era are not waiting for permission or certainty. They're building, questioning, and adjusting in real time.
And the ones who are doing it well are the ones who are holding both the possibility and the responsibility at the same time, not choosing between them.
So here's the thing that I keep coming back to. We started with that number, 56% of AI experts optimistic, 17% of the public. And I think the real story isn't which number is right. The real story is that the gap itself is the work. Closing it, not through spin, but through building AI that actually earns trust, that's the defining challenge of this era. And the voices doing that work are the ones worth listening to.
And they're out there, in the research labs, in the startup offices, in the small businesses figuring out how to use AI without losing what makes them human. The revolution isn't happening in one place. It's happening everywhere at once.
That's a good place to land. And with that, thanks for being here on Copilot Podcasts. The next time someone tells you AI is either going to save the world or end it, you now know the honest answer is probably both, and neither, and it depends entirely on who's building it and why. Keep listening to the right voices.